Football Manager is just days away from being released. So what are your plans for Football Manager? Well, if you've watched my previous video, you'll know my plans, but I'm here to tell you about something else that I'm excited to get stuck into, and something else you could get stuck into as well in Football Manager. Now, we know there's new graphics, new teams, new players, new everything in Football Manager this year, which is why it's so exciting. We've got so much to get stuck into. I can't really wait. I don't know how we're going to cover it all in a year. This could really have been the game that we could have been had to play for the past 2 years. But there's one thing that I think we're all slightly forgetting with Football Manager's release date, especially the early access release date, just days away. And that is the introduction of women's football. We were told about it in 2021, but it's finally here. Just the 4 years later, but it's here now, and we're getting stuck into women's football. I know it's not the first thing I'm going to do in Football Manager this season, but certainly something that I'll have loaded up in my save, and certainly something that I want to get stuck into a little bit later on in the year as well. So in this video, I thought I'd go through 3 teams, specifically in England, because that's the series, that's the part of women's football that I know the best. But 3 teams that you could play in Football Manager 26 of women's football, which I am excited to get stuck into, as I say. But all of these teams have got something interesting about them, an interesting storyline that you could get behind, and something that could power you to glory and win the Women's Champions League that Arsenal did not so long ago. So let's get stuck in with 3 teams that I think you could manage, 3 women's teams that I reckon you could manage in Football Manager this year. So looking here at the leagues that we know will be in Football Manager 26 from the start, 14 playable leagues across 11 nations and 3 continents. The only double league in one nation, so where you've got multiple divisions in the same country, is England. So you've got the Women's League and the Women's Super League 2. So we'll be going through teams in both of those divisions during this save. You've also got leagues from the USA, Germany, Japan, Italy, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, Wales and Europe. So you've also got the double league system in Sweden, but I don't know Sweden too well, so we're just going to stick to teams in England, and let's get stuck in. Now, the first team that I think you could take over is the London City Lionesses, and what a story they have had in recent times. They used to be part of the Millwall brand we see a lot of the time football clubs have in men's and women's side. They used to be the Millwall Lionesses, but back in 2019, so 6 years ago now, they decided that they wanted to be their own thing. They became the London City Lionesses. They play at Hayes Lane in Bromley, and they've got one of the richest owners, I think, in women's football as well. So they've got the backing, they just need the foundations laying, they need the groundworks there. So a relatively modern club. They don't necessarily have the history that your Arsenals, your Chelseas have in the women's game, but they're getting there, and they're certainly an exciting club to be a part of at the moment. They were promoted from the Women's Championship, what is now the WSL2, last season, winning the league, realising a dream that's been a couple of years in the making, and now they are certainly splashing the cash. They've got Aslani, the captain of the Sweden team we know are up there in women's football. Got Jocelyn Precheur, I think that's how you pronounce it, formerly managing of Paris Saint-Germain as well, one of the best managers in the women's game. It's a club that has certainly been catching the attention recently, that is safe to say, and they're going for glory in WSL2, in the Women's Super League. this year now. Probably not going to achieve it this year, and you've got a long way to go given the dominance of Arsenal and Chelsea, and given the rise of the teams like Manchester United and Manchester City recently. In terms of the players that you've got to deal with, Nikita Paris is, of course, a huge name. You've got some other huge names as well in the world of women's football to get stuck into and get playing with, which I'm really excited to. All these new players, all these new, almost new names for us, because I don't know if you're like me with Football Manager. I don't know a lot of players outside of the clubs that you support and you follow, but when you get stuck into Football Manager, that's when you really get to know what these players are like. You almost feel like you know them like friends and like real people, which I suppose they are, which is great, isn't it? But your first club that you could take over when you delve into women's football in Football Manager is the London City Lionesses. We're going to take a step down into the Women's Super League 2 for our next club. The next team you could choose in Football Manager 26 in the Women's Super League 2 this time is going to be the hardest test for you in Football Manager. Not only is it a bunch of new players that you might have to learn, especially like myself, as I say, not really followed the domestic side of the game too much. Everyone follows the England team. But the team that you could get stuck into is Portsmouth. They currently sit bottom of WSL2 and pulled off the great escape last season. It's just their second season in women's professional football after turning professional for the start of the 2024-25 season. They were promoted from the Southern League at the end of the 23-24 season. So this is just their second season in the Super League structure, and they're a team on the up, but they need your backing to make that next step, to be competitive towards the top of WSL2 and then make that step forward into the WSL and potentially challenge. We all know the success of Portsmouth before, winning the FA Cup. Perhaps you could follow a similar model, win the Women's FA Cup with Portsmouth women and use that as a stepping stone into the WSL to finance your way forward. All of these different sorts of storylines you can paint for yourself. Portsmouth, certainly a club that you could pick as your team to play for in Football Manager. They play Wesley Park, Havant and Fratton Park as well. So multiple different stadiums, as we know, with women's football. Hopefully you can get them over into Fratton Park more full time, if that's something that happens in the game. Get them playing in front of a larger crowd and get them promoted. That's your first step, and then winning the Super League with women, with Portsmouth women. That would be incredible, and what a storyline that would be. So that's my second recommendation, is Portsmouth women. You could take to glory in Football Manager 26. My final recommendation is coming up in a moment. Now, if you like an underdog story, this final team that I'm going to recommend for you in women's football is certainly for you. They play out of a university sports facility, albeit quite a decent one, and they also are quite the underdog story, not attached to any major football club either, just like the London City Lionesses. And that is Durham Women's Football Club. They play in the WSL2 and play, get this, Maiden Castle, which is part of Durham University. Certainly a club that will need your help. I think it's fair to say, but I think this one's personally got it all for me, and one that I think I'm going to be quite partial to when I choose my team to play in women's football with. I love an underdog story, currently managed by head coach Adam Furness, with quite a small stadium as well. They've only got 300 seats, I think, in the stadium, capacity of 1,800, so quite the small ground as well. They're certainly going to need your help. Can you take them all the way to the stop? Well, all the way to the top. That's your challenge. I love these clubs that are unattached and not part of any major sort of group as well, because I think that they need that, don't they? I think that they need your support. They've got a highest ever finish of second in the championship, and that was during the COVID season. Never played in the Women's Super League, and they're kind of mid-table. They finished fourth last season in the championship. In terms of teams that I reckon you can take all the way to the top, in terms of what the closest to a road to glory is in women's football, in Football Manager, given we've only got 2 divisions until people mod them in and things like that. This is certainly it. If you want your traditional, almost Park to Prem style, that sort of Football Manager save, then Durham is the team that you need to manage in Football Manager, and probably where I will be casting my eyes when it comes to management in the WSL 2. So that is my 3 recommendations: London City Lionesses, Portsmouth, and finally Durham. But let me know what you think. Those are my recommendations. Will you be playing women's football in Football Manager 26? I know I definitely will. You want to go back onto the channel and see who else I'll be managing this year in Football Manager. Whilst you're having a scroll through the channels page, make sure you like the video and subscribe whilst you're at it to the Tacticali YouTube channel. And I will see you next time.